You're listening to On Guard, where we chop it up with everyday people who do extraordinary things. If you're inspired by what you hear, I'll ask that you follow and share with a friend. Today's guest is probably one of the most giving guys I've ever met. He's gone out of his way to help me countless times and inspires a community of like-minded individuals who are running his own business and chasing his dreams one day at a time. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Jordan Franklin. It's great to have you on, man.
Hey, Jackson, thanks for having me.
So basically, I want you to kind of run me through how'd you get started?
So, in October last year, I was playing professional soccer over in England, and I got injured. I got injured pretty badly, and I was just sitting in my dorm room thinking, man, there's probably something that I could be doing right now that could better myself for the future. And so I did a little bit of research online, and I found the main man, Eman Gadji. And so So I watched that video that everybody's seen about the best type of business models. I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this. So I tried it for about probably 2 months, no results whatsoever. And so I found a couple mentors during that time, and somebody showed me Go High Level, and I was like, okay, this sounds like a great opportunity where I can make some money, maybe even some quick cash, which I quickly figured out is not a thing. So Go High Level, that petered out. I did that for about 3 months or so, and I was like, you know what, having to teach people how to use the software is pretty difficult. And, just starting out in the professional world, it's kind of, it was kind of, what's the word for it? Tedious, I guess. And so probably about from January or February to April, I was just kind of doing my own research and setting up the systems for myself for a potential business that I could create. And during the summertime, I decided to go all in with social media marketing and starting my own agency again. And so far, it's proved pretty successful.
Dude, that's great. I didn't know you played professional soccer.
Yeah.
Because remember, you just said, sorry, what'd you say?
It was, I played it for I played 4 or 5 games, got injured. And then my last day over in England before I went over back home for Christmas, I was able to train again. And so, I was basically in training sessions for most of the time that I was playing professional, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is.
I mean, that's a great story. So do you attribute any of the hardships that you experienced within soccer or anything like that to your early success?
Yeah, so I started playing soccer when I was about 6 years old, and I quickly found out that no one's going to be as committed to it as I was in my area. And I realized that having to adapt to that is something that I need to do, and train myself harder than everybody else was doing. So, working hard and I think a bit of resilience to really stick it out and trust myself that I'm going to play professional was really what translated into the business world.
So I know a lot of people attribute sports and the gym to business. They would say that kind of early, dedication to something really helps you kind of get ahead a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially with the gym, because you get what you put in. It's the same thing with soccer. Like what I said, if I wanted to play professional, I had to put in 125% more work than everybody else that was on my team, because nobody else really wants to play soccer play professional soccer in a small town. Everybody wants to play professional football, professional baseball, classic American sports. No one's like, oh yeah, I want to play professional soccer. Although I will say that is changing a bit, as I've helped a couple teams train since I have a coaching license now.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah. Have you seen there was a thing on Netflix called Beckham? It's about David Beckham's journey. Did you watch that yet?
No, I haven't watched that, but I was actually in a call today talking about it with someone who
it's a great documentary. Yeah. It really the emotion they bring into I've never been moved by a video before, and they do a great job of really putting you in his shoes, and he experienced some crazy things that I don't know, I think you should definitely watch it. It's very, I don't know, I think you'll like it as a soccer player as well.
I'll tell you what, I mean, those fans over in England are crazy. I mean, I've seen some videos of Newcastle this year because they've been playing in the Champions League. Unhinged, absolutely unhinged. They love their teams, man. They're so emotional about it. Compared to American sports, I feel English sports are much more much more intense.
Yeah, I feel like they kind of have like it's more, I don't know, because like it's cultural here, but it's everything there. You know what I mean? Like people are
Yeah,
like, oh
that's a
yeah, I
good
gotta
way of
watch the
putting it.
game. Yeah, but like they are just like that is their life. Like, you see the game. If your team loses, you're like you're heartbroken, which I think is like, I don't know, I think we should kind of get some of that in America because I feel like it adds like more like you know what I mean? Like it's more stakes in line than just like, sports betting or like whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's
It
I don't know.
I think it definitely starts at a young age, because if you start watching baseball or football when you're in your 40s, you don't have a lot of time to build that emotional connection to the team. But if you start watching baseball or a specific team uh, at a young age, because say your parents like that team, you're going to have that emotional connection all the way through your life.
And you think that's kind of why some people who start earlier in business sort of have that same like connection to it? Because every like entrepreneur like guru you hear is always like start as soon as you can. And you think it's because like the time is our most valuable resource and like you kind of have to utilize that when you can.
Yeah, I think um, a lot of people fall in love with the idea of making money,
Mhm.
and oftentimes those people actually fail at business, because if you go into business with the idea and with the goal of only making money and providing for your family, you probably won't succeed. There's those few times where you will succeed. You've got a great business idea, you got great systems in place, you have a great mindset. But I think that if you go into business with the goal of making money, you're going to fail. So you have to switch your mindset into thinking, okay, I'm going to go into business and solve people's problems, and by solving people's problems, I will make money off of that.
Yeah, dude, that's great.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit before, and you said you dropped out of college. Was that because of the soccer, or was that because of online business, ecom? Like, what was your main motivator for that?
So I would say I dropped out of, I went to college because it was my dad wanted me to go to college.
Mhm.
He thought that I needed to get a professional education, which it's very good for people who know what they want to study. Or
Yeah,
excuse me, it's good for people who want to get into sciences, or
Mhm.
for people who don't really know what they want to do, or oftentimes people are just shoved into college because their family's paying for it and they want them to, and that's the only thing that they want them to do, and they want to satisfy their parent or their family. But I think for me, dropping out of college was because I found success in the business world, and I realized that there's so much more opportunity out there online where I could be making money and learning, as opposed to just learning and developing bad habits that often people develop in college, like drinking and drugs and partying and things like that. So I think dropping out of college was you know I think part of me, like probably 20% of me, wants to go back to college,
Oh,
but
really?
80% of me wants to continue in the business world. And I mean, I could do that in college, but I want to put all of my focus into business and really grow something amazing. Because throughout my life, I feel like I went the untraditional path, especially through high school. I started playing soccer overseas when I was 15 in high school, and so I had to go through homeschool from 15 to 17, not 15 to 18, and eventually I transferred back to high school so I could graduate with my friends. But I think following the untraditional path is not a bad thing.
Dude, so you're like really good at soccer. I thought you just said you played like in college. I didn't know you like were like, like a world traveler because of the sport. That's amazing.
Yep, yep.
See, would you
I
say
played. I
like,
play. I played in Colombia, Portugal, Spain, and England.
so do you think that cultural experience growing up kind of helped you? I don't know, because you're very well spoken, I would say. So like, do you think that kind of helped like with your charisma and like, like all the cultures kind of mixing in while you were growing up?
Yes, absolutely. The amount of people that I made, or the amount of people that I met, the friends that I made, it's really turned me into the person that I am. And especially, I went through a lot of hardships living on my own, starting at 15. So having that experience about from living on my own really helped me into who I am today.
So what would you say like your biggest lesson was living on your own? Because I kind of had a similar experience with my parents. Like, one of my dads was always working, my mom's kind of away. So you kind of have to like, kind of raise yourself a little bit. And do you think it's kind of a common trait with entrepreneurs, like very like self-motivated and self-driven to kind of succeed?
That needs to be a trait in successful entrepreneurs. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, the bottom line is time management. Because if you're spending 6 hours a day on your phone, it's terrible. So the
Yeah.
the the biggest thing that I learned living on my own was time management, and I found out the hard way. I got so far behind in my studies that I had to take over 9 classes my senior year in order to catch up to graduate on time. So time management is definitely the biggest thing that I learned whenever I started living on my own.
What are some things you do now of time management? Do you have like, a meticulous schedule? Because I know everyone kind of does it a little bit different. I like a calendar. You've seen mine. It's a
Yeah.
little bit wild, but like, what's your like main like time management strategy?
So my time management strategy, I my mornings are meticulous, very meticulous. So I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and then every 30 minutes I've got something going on. Whether that, it could be time taken up, like, exercising during the morning. But when it comes to the afternoon, it's basically a free for all for anything that I haven't finished, or if I have any calls in the afternoon. I love taking sales calls in the afternoon because I feel like my mind is more is the gears are turning faster as opposed to the morning where I'm doing most of my light and deep work. So it's easier for me to really get the right words out in the afternoon. I think that's the right word for it.
So you said you kind of use the mornings as like a workout. I mean, like a warm up for your mind. And then when you kind of get a little bit later in the day, you're kind of like ready and to be more like, conversational.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a warm up. I would say it's more of um, I do my hardest and deepest work
Mhm.
during the mornings, and then my afternoons are filled with more creative work like sales calls, because
Okay.
when you're on sales, you got to be constantly on your toes and try to get the prospect from A to B. So I think the mornings are definitely for deep work for me.
Interesting. So like you're doing all this, you dropped out of school, you stop playing soccer because of injury. It's like besides like that, what's your biggest motivator? Like really what gets you up? You wake up at 4:30, like what's getting up in the morning? Like, okay, today's another day. Let me go crush this. Like what's your thing?
So I'm gonna step back for a second and tell a story. So
Okay, yeah.
in high school, even a little bit of middle school, I realized that I was an asshole.
Okay.
I was a big time asshole. Like, I was not a nice person. I had a big group of friends, but I realized through my relationships, especially with women, that I was just not a nice guy.
Mhm.
That people like being around me probably because I'm a I'm a I'm from a well-off family. Let's just put it
Okay.
like that. But people like being around me, although I was an asshole. And so
Mhm.
I started reading philosophy probably around eighth grade. Probably around I was between the ages of 12 and 14. I started reading philosophy, and it really gave me a frame shift, a mindset shift, to turning into kind of the person that I wanted to be. So I attribute almost everything that I know and am to philosophy. So I would say philosophy, there's parts of philosophy for different parts of life. I think that although my biggest motivator is probably just myself and my will to succeed, and having a competitive mindset also helps a lot.
So do you think that like, you're kind of reformation, pretty much from,
Yeah.
asshole kid to like, like nice young man, like do you think that combined with like soccer, like because I know I'm a very competitive person too. Like I love playing sports. Like it's just there's nothing like it, going down like using your body to really just like get in the game. Do you
Yeah.
think that competitive thing like again like translate to business? Like you have to kind of like want it more than other people. And you think some people kind of fake wanting it because you'll see a lot of people who are kind of they don't practice what they preach, and you think you have to be competitive in order to do that.
So I think anybody can preach. When it comes to college, if you go to business school, most of the professors, they don't own they aren't actually businessmen and entrepreneurs. They're academics who know how to start a business by the books. They don't they I will say though that is generalized, so I could be wrong. Um, but many of the people who are teaching how to run a business have not ran a business and been down in the dirty works. But I would say I attribute a lot of my competitiveness to soccer, because I always wanted to play professional, so I had to work harder than everybody. I think having a competitive mindset, and also being wanting to be, or thinking that you are better than everybody, that is a huge one. I think I honestly, I think it's a good thing. you think you're better than everybody. And so as long as you're trying to prove that and you are proving that, then I think it's an okay trait. But if you think you're better than everybody and you preach but you don't do, then you're just a hypocrite, I guess you could say, you know.
I think, yeah, like there was something I was watching or reading or something that basically a lot of entrepreneurs have that like God complex. Like they think that they, like even myself, like I'm like, yeah, like when you walk around people, you're like, yeah, just like, they're not the same. It's like, and I think it's because you know how much work you put in and you know
Yeah.
the average, technically, like people, you said 6 hours a day on your phone, like you're just not doing that. So, and you can guarantee yourself for a fact that you are better in some aspects at least. And then you stack those aspects up over in time. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, according to the data, like right now I am better than most people I know. So like, I feel like you're right. And also you don't want to be arrogant with it though. And I feel like
Right.
if you
So
kind of, what are you saying?
when I was an asshole kid, I had that I'm better than you aspect, but I didn't use it in a constructive manner. I've told people before, as long as you're not an asshole, having an ego was okay. And as long as you can back up the ego, that's completely fine. It's the same idea, you can have that God complex, but as long as you're not an asshole, then it's fine.
So what was like your best thing like of controlling your ego? Because like I know you read the books, but like how did you kind of practice what you preached? Well, I guess preach what you practice with philosophy.
So I think controlling my ego, um, I think it just attributes to me actually being able to back up the ego, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I, yeah, I think backing up the ego is the biggest part about controlling your ego, because you could have an ego up to here and your skills are down here, then something's wrong. You got to level that out. It's
Mm-hmm.
also I was just thinking about this. It was also thinking before you speak. That's a big one.
Yeah.
You don't want to be an asshole.
No, I try to like when I meditate days, I try to like, set goals to work on like for myself. And a lot of that is like because I have a kind of a quick brain. I'm very like snappy, I feel like with my jokes. The problem is that sometimes when you're making a joke to a certain person or a different demographic, like you have to kind of remember like a backstory. Like I remember I was walking yesterday and this guy had told me like a very serious joke thing. And obviously I was making a joke about it, but the joke, in the later weeks had kind of referenced that. And I felt awful after that conversation. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, like that's gonna make him think about all the day. So like you really have to, you're right. You have to definitely think a little bit before you're saying all the words.
Yeah. People who know me will definitely know that I have suffered from that.
Mhm. Okay, so you have your motivation like within yourself. Was there any like oh my God, extrinsic motivation like from a person?
um, so I would say that my parents are very good motivators. They've motivated me not only my business career, but also through my sports career. But I also have some very, very supportive friends, which I'm very lucky for. We've been friends for a very long time, so I do attribute a little bit of my motivation to them, just because they're always asking me, "What's up, Jordan? How you doing?" kind of
Yeah.
thing,
I think that's great. I think like sometimes I feel like friends can feel closer than family because like I feel
Yep.
like everyone's family's life is complicated and different, and family's hard. You know what I mean? But I feel like with friends, like the reason you're friends because you have a deep caring for each other, and like I have like a friend I call a brother. You know what I mean? Like everyone I feel like has
Right.
one, and those are some of the most important people in your life. Like no matter, I would do absolutely anything for him. You know what I mean? So I feel like
Yep.
those people you have to kind of keep around, and then when you are, you think you're going to be successful, you're going to be successful, then you can kind of treat those people who supported you along the way instead of the people who come when you're at the top, which I think is
Yep.
great. Okay, so now from the top, okay, what was your rock bottom? Like, what was your moment where you're like, oh, like I have to either make a change or this is just like I don't know if I can come back from this.
I don't think I've hit that yet, to be honest. I don't think I've had a rock. Maybe there was a time in high school where my mental strength was not the greatest, but I
Mhm.
honestly have not. It's going to sound kind of shitty, but I've not really experienced many rock bottoms in my life that I at least haven't rebounded from very, very, very well. I think that having a strong, being very mentally tough helps with that a lot. And being on rock bottom is not bad because at least you're
Mhm.
on the bottom. Well, at least in retrospect, you will know that you're at the bottom, and it's all up from there. So I think hitting rock bottom is sometimes a good thing. And it's you don't let's put it like this. You don't want to be average your entire life, right? If
Hmm.
you can hit rock bottom once and you can rebound from it, your average will go from here to here.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like that could be pretty true, you know?
Okay, you said you haven't hit it yet. So what would be something that you, if you would have a rock bottom, what would your rock bottom be? Like, what would you think is a situation you get yourself in? You're like, wow, this could not, you know, because I feel like no one really knows when something bad is going to happen, but I feel like we have an idea of things in our life that might be weak points or might be, you know, strainers in the future.
Um, that's a tough question to be honest. I think rock bottom would probably be in debt and homeless. I feel like that's a very good rock bottom, you know.
Yeah.
But going back to philosophy, I try not to really think about that because I don't think that it's going to happen to me.
Hmm.
So I haven't experienced that because I don't think it's going to happen. I could have been in rock bottom for all I know, but I don't think I was. Is so I think again attributing things to philosophy. I think rock bottom can be a good thing, but you don't always have to go there.
So you think it's kind of about, you could be at rock bottom, but your perspective is going to really like you said, like a strong mental frame of like, instead of like, oh, I'm at rock bottom, life sucks. Oh, I'm at rock bottom, what can I do?
Exactly. Yeah. It's the same idea with nihilism, you know.
Mhm.
My take on nihilism is, you know, if if the world is going to end, why should I do this? But I think it's like that is nihilism. That's pretty much the definition of nihilism. Where I framed it so it looks like this, so it's easier for me to rely on almost. I say if the world is going to end tomorrow, why shouldn't I do this? Like, why shouldn't, obviously within reason, why shouldn't I go rob a bank? You don't rob a bank.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't I send that email that's 10% over asking price because you think
Hmm.
you're worth that?
Yeah. So it's kind of, it's not like a super tricky one, but like it's kind of, it's hard to like do for everyone because it's very like circumstantial, like person to person, but like getting started, you know, because like you said you got started because you kind of changed your mental framework. You had like a little bit of the God complex to like, you know, you wanted that success and stuff, but like what's the most important thing for someone getting started? Like if you had to go back to yourself before you started, like, you know, your first Iman Gadi's video, whatever, like, cause I was there too. Like, what would you tell yourself that guy that would kind of maybe give him a little edge or like kind of help him know the steps to take?
I would say first off, don't watch all of Iman's videos because otherwise you're going to turn into like a Sigma alpha male, and those kind of guys are kind of miserable. Let's be
Hmm.
honest.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I would say focus on building your knowledge and your systems and your frameworks because regardless if you get into the agency space, if you can build a strong system and a strong framework, you can go from here, average to here in a matter of months if you have a super strong system. I was talking about this with another one of my friends, but if you have a super strong system and all of your frameworks are layered, the wider your framework, the wider your base, the taller the top of your pyramid is going to be. So if you can have a very wide base, you can have a super tall pyramid. It may take some time, but you will get to that point. It's the same idea with Warren Buffett. He made one investment every 5 years, and he's the biggest or he is the best, one of the best investors ever. So, you take that into perspective, expand your timeline. Okay, yeah, there's a one liner for you. Expand your timeline.
Do you think like thinking on a longer time horizon kind of gives you that like, you know, instead of thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get rich in the next couple of months, oh, how can I get rich in the next couple of years? Because I feel like
Yeah,
the wealth in the 3 months is going to be significantly less than the wealth of like, you know, 10 years or, you know, 20
yeah,
years of like just like the big aspirations.
yeah. I mean, if you can focus on one thing for 10 years, you're gonna make money.
Yeah, like
Because
guaranteed. Like,
if you end up not focusing on it, then you're probably not going to make money. Or
mhm,
if you're still focusing on it and you're not making money, then well, you're probably not going to do it for very long.
yeah. That reminds me because like I know some people like have trouble with starting out and kind of sticking consistently to things. So like how would you say like how did you stay consistent with, you know, your daily routines, like you're betting yourself when, you know, because it's hard. Like there is days when you don't want to. It's easier to go back, like you said, you know, the 20% of you wants to go back to college because that'd be easy. You know, you go party with your friends, go out. Like there's a lot of things that are kind of like distracting, I feel like, from growing yourself and growing your business. Like, what would you
Right.
say, like, how do you kind of stick to your goals?
Um, I think the way that I stuck to my goals was, I haven't really reached my goals yet, obviously, but the way that I'm getting there is it's just having a strong system in place that you build up first. And I attribute a lot of that to um, this book right here. Well, let's see. Atomic
Yeah,
Habits.
wonderful
Atomic
book.
Habits. I've probably read that book at least 5 times. It's one of the best books that you can read to really change your life. And I think, building the systems and frameworks using other people's knowledge is ideal, because if you're just sitting in your room thinking, unless you're a genius, how am I going to build a system that's going to make me $1 million? You got to use other people's knowledge, books, to really help you build your system and framework and make sure that's bulletproof and nothing can change it. If you can have such if you can be so self-confident that no one can change your the way your mind works and your emotions and your actions, then you're going to be an invincible person. That's the bottom line. No one can change you. Maybe you need to be changed for the better, but if you got a really strong system and someone comes and says, hey man, what the hell are you doing? Stop doing that. But it's good for you and it's a good system, then he's not going to do anything. He's just going to be some other guy. He's going to walk right past you.
Do you think being able to be so like self-confident, like outwardly and like inwardly, that can kind of help you stay on your path and like not have to really worry about, because everyone like,
I
what you
I
say?
think that being self-confident inwardly is much more important than being self-confident outwardly. Self-confidence outwardly kind of shows that you're kind of like a there's not really a word for it, but I'm just gonna say prick.
Okay, sure.
You don't want to be a prick.
Mhm.
So you walk past someone and they say hello, and maybe they're at a lower economic scale than you, and you're very self-confident outwardly. They may not say hello to you because you're so self-confident outwardly. It's the same idea of like, uh, I personally don't like being don't like people knowing that I'm smart, because then they'll share things with you. It's the same idea as what I'm trying to get at. But I think being self-confident inwardly is much more important than being self-confident outwardly.
We want to elaborate more on like the being smart and sharing people. That's interesting.
So if you are seen as the smartest person in the room, and everybody knows that you're the smartest person in the room, I believe that most people will not share things with you um, that they would otherwise if they didn't know you were, or if they knew that you weren't smart. I think I said that
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
But if you're seen as like the guy who's not too smart, who is just flunking through college, people may share more things with you. I think it's also important to know that you are smart, like the self-confidence thing, because otherwise, if you fake being not smart, you're going to start to believe that you're not smart and able to do things.
So how would you say, like, because I know sometimes appearing smart is important. So how would you kind of flip that switch between, you know, being on the same like not level, but like level as people you come across daily versus when you want to be a little more impressive, you want to kind of pull people in with your intelligence. Like, how would you say you kind of differentiate those two?
It's all about the group you're staying in, or the group you're keeping with. So if you're keeping with a group of people who maybe they're all chemical engineers and finance guys who are at the top level, I think that matching the group that you're with is very important. It's kind of similar to what you said about matching the group that you're with.
So you think having like, because I like I said, the smartest person in the room, because like there's like a little saying like if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So you think
Right.
kind of always going upwards to where you're not, and you kind of gain the knowledge of other people is definitely like way more beneficial than if not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's you have I think ideally you'll have different friend groups for different things.
Mhm.
Yep. And as you have different friends for different things, individually.
I feel like there's kind of the opposite of that. Like, like I said, my brother, my best friend, like I feel like there's some people that kind of fit all the slots. And I feel like those people are some of the most valuable people, really. Because if you can have
For
a friend
sure, for sure.
that can change with you in the friend groups, you're golden. Because then you're never really like alone. Because I feel like
Yep.
I also want to touch on this because I know like a lot of people like, not being in college must be a little bit lonely. You know what I mean? Because like with college, this is very social.
Yes.
It's a very social, like you're always like walking around, like, and even I know some people in college feel very lonely, which is hard to believe. Like, there's some people that are here around, people their age, but they still feel very alone, which is like, no, I suffer, like, not suffer, but like I struggle with that. Like you said, you have a lot of people that are like you, but also not. So how would you kind of deal with like, the loneliness of being, by yourself and like working all the time? Like, how do you kind of cope with that?
So I I think that you gotta find a friend in yourself. If you're gonna be alone for many years working on yourself and trying to push yourself to new boundaries, you just gotta find a friend in yourself. Eventually, it's hard at first. It's very hard at first, but once you are alone for a long time by yourself, it becomes easier.
So you think, I'll see another, counter to that is when you do, you work so hard on yourself that you are successful. Do you know how to trust the people that come around when you're at the top? You know what I mean? Because a lot of people will doubt you. And, like you said, the guy with the objections is going to be there. So how would you say, to kind of differentiate the people that can change group with you while you're at the top as well?
I think that just boils down to intuition. If you got a great intuition, you can tell that that person maybe lying about who they are, or maybe that person is just not the right person for you. If they've got a plethora of you're never going to find the perfect person. You'll never find the perfect person. There'll always be someone with flaws that may conflict with yours or may not. You never know. But you'll never find the perfect person. But if you can find someone who maybe is 70% or 60% and good, and maybe 40 or 30 or 20 or whatever that fits for you, then that's probably a good friend. And if as long as I see it as long as they're supporting you no matter what, then they're a good friend.
So a lot of people say like find someone who has bigger dreams for you than you. And I feel like those people are
Yep.
kind of the golden standard. You know what I mean? You'll find very few, and I think I've probably found maybe one or like my parents. Three people that really like actually believe like wholeheartedly that that like I have what it takes. Well, not what it takes, but like, because I feel like anyone can really have what it takes to succeed, but it's like how can you use your like God given skills to kind
I
of like
think I think that there's one person, like truly, truly deep down, there's one person who wants you to be better than them. And as a man, I think that's probably your dad. Obviously it's relative. Some people don't have very great home lives, but um, I think your father will always want you to be better than them. I think one person.
that's deep, man. 'Cause I feel like do you have like a good relationship with your dad?
Yep.
I do as well, and I feel like he has been probably one of the most like he's always they're always rooting for you. You know what I mean? I feel like when I have a kid, I feel like I also kind of feel the same like you said. Like I want him to be or she to be just like fantastic. Because like who doesn't want that for like someone they raise pretty much.
Yeah.
So kind of pivoting from the relationships, being a dad. Uh, how much work do you do per day to kind of that you feel like comfortable with to reach your goal?
Um, I would say minimum between eight to 10 hours. But if you really want to hit your goals, 10 plus hours. You could even hit the 16-hour mark, which is a bit crazy. That's waking up, working, and going to sleep. There's no time to exercise, which is extremely important. But if you end up hitting that 16-hour mark, you really have to figure out how much work you've actually done, how much quality work you've actually done, because um, over a 5-hour time period, there's only maybe 3 or 4 hours where you're actually doing consistently great and good work. There's this book right here, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. Covey, I'm not really sure how to say his last name, but that book will teach you how to be effective during the day. It's a great book. I definitely recommend.
So how would you kind of, in your words, like differentiate like kind of like busy work from like like you said, deep high quality work?
I think it just honestly depends on the task. If I'm doing busy work, it's probably sending out emails, doing outreach. If I'm doing deep work, it's uh, tinkering and trying to optimize campaigns, or maybe it's actually I can categorize it easier. Deep work is something where you're going to make uh, money no matter what. So optimizing campaigns, you're probably going to make money. Um, Light work, I would say, is light work or busy work is definitely outreach, sending, update emails, or just honestly just reading your email list, communicating with some of your team members, things along that nature. But deep work is whenever you put those earplugs in, you put those headphones on, and you have got your caffeine, and you're just going to town, and you're not stopping for any distractions.
And do you enjoy those types of work periods? Because I know some people like are kind of confused on how people can work, because for some people working 16 hours is like ridiculous. Like they couldn't
Yeah.
fathom, sitting down, doing work, going to bed, waking up and doing it again. Like, do you enjoy that? Like, do you have like kind of a workaholic side where you're kind of like, wow, I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to do this. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I think every true entrepreneur can't go to sleep without thinking about their business. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, you just can't turn it off. And
Never.
some of your relationships will actually suffer with that, because if you're switched on while you're with them, all you're talking is about things that they're probably not interested in. If you're with those kind of friends, like I said, different friends for different things.
I remember I had when I was first starting out, I like because I kind of have a ADHD hyperfixation type of deal. And I remember I went very, very intense, like all in, and it was all I could think about. Like it still is, but like I've kind of learned how to, like you said, switch it on and off. I
Yep.
remember my friends like, Jax, shut up. Like I'm like, it's interesting, but like
Yeah.
I feel like you're right. A lot of people who want to be or are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurial, like you have to like love it, and you have to like kind of the way to like build the passion is to learn as much as you can, I feel like. And
Yep.
like those people who aren't really passionate, like in their off periods, are going to be doing someone else. But like, like I know like myself, I like to listen to like podcasts about business in the gym now. You know what I mean? Just kind of like get that extra hour. Cause I feel like, because like I feel like I used to think days were long, and I feel like now that I've been working so much, like the 8 hours a day I'm able to work, 10 hours of school, like they don't feel like enough time anymore, which is very
Yep.
interesting. It's a very like kind of polar opposite thing. Like during the summer, it was, days and days of, I was just like, oh, this is just forever. But like if I had that time now, I'd be utilizing it so much differently.
Yep. One thing about listening to music and podcasts at the gym is that the gym is the only time that I go out. So, that's my only time where I can like let go and turn off and just, listen to really loud music that
Mhm.
has no words, because I'm just, lifting, doing rows or
Yeah.
benching, whatever. It's just a way for me to turn off so that I can go right back into it, or rebound, like I said earlier, from down here, because I like to work out sometimes in the midday,
Mhm.
because, you wake up at 4:30 and by 12 you're pretty dead, uh, if you haven't taken a break for like breakfast or whatever. But if you can, split up that time, say, you wake up at 4:30, you start working at 4:30, whatever. If you can take that break and go to the gym, you'll go from, regular to up afterwards, after the gym. It's like a break in between.
So you think you kind of have to have, or it's helpful to have kind of like the breaks in between the really long work periods? Because I know there's some studies that say like your brain can't focus for a certain amount of time. Like, do
Yep.
you think that kind of is attributed to like, having to take, like that hour and a half in the gym?
Yeah, I think definitely. The gym is a great place to spend your time, because it's a healthy place. No, normally it's a healthy place. Uh, in terms of, time management. You could go on walks too. Any kind of physical activity to break up your day is great.
So would you say that like you've kind of found your purpose in life, or do you think there is something different? You know what I mean? Do you think this is what we're going to do for the next, 40, 50 years? Or do you think this is kind of like just another stepping stone, from, like school to soccer to school to dropping out to business? Like, do you think this is it? Or do you think there's something like greater that you want to pursue?
I will say that business is definitely, or agency work, especially social media marketing agency, is not it. It's the reason why it's a great starting business is because it takes so little to start, and if you got a lot of time, then you can be successful. Um, but I think if you become very skilled in something, your calling will always be to teach people how to do it.
So you would say you
On,
want to be
on
a
my
teacher?
on my bucket list, at the very top is teach a college lecture. So I would say that
Interesting.
education at the end of the day is probably what I'm striving for.
So you would want to TED Talk lecture or class with Professor Flankman.
I feel like I could see myself having a real long beard and teaching a
Mhm.
college class.
Interesting. I don't know. Because a lot of people ask, I don't think I've gotten to the point where I've set a long term goal. You know what I mean? I've never been very material. So I would like to be comfortable, but having a swimming pool of money has never been in my to do. But
Yeah,
I feel like you're right. I think it would be nice I think I'd like to be a mentor of some kind. You know what I mean? Just kind of have someone to kind of
right.
because if I had even though starting mentorship recently, having that has been just incredibly helpful from, starting, 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
I think I believe Alex Hormozy said this. Um the biggest service that you can do anybody, or that you can do the population, is education and teaching people how to do it. His motto is making business affordable, or making business free, or something like that. And I can't agree with that more. I mean, the more people who know the skills that it takes to run a business, the better, because you get your finance skills, you get your time management skills, you get your hard working skills. Starting a business is great, but again, not all people are um, business owners and CEOs and founders. You have to have your workers.
And you think that, do you feel not bad, but do you feel bad for people that don't ever kind of get turned on to business? Do you think that do you feel bad for them that they can't experience the life that you think they should? Because I feel like everyone kind of has their dreams when they're growing up, and I feel like a lot of people don't really know how to accomplish them. You know what I mean? Say you go back to asshole Jordan. Do you think he would have the skills of how to know how to get to his professor state, or do you think that it is okay because they never knew what they were missing out on?
I think as kids, everybody has high dreams, and high hopes, big dreams and high hopes. Um, I will say though, I read some article out there that a majority of the kids nowadays want to become TikTok influencers, which is a little crazy. But not everybody is a business owner. Not everybody's an A-type personality. I believe that you have to have your workers, and the people who are working minimum wage jobs when they're older. Maybe that's completely okay with them. Maybe they're satisfied with that, which is great. If they love their life, that's perfectly fine. But if people who want to succeed and find bigger things in life, there's resources out there. That's the bottom line. You may not have the time, which I will say you definitely have the time, because you could spend 4 hours or 5 hours a day on education after your job, and you can find some pretty crazy stuff out there to do. I say, if you're out there and you are wanting to become something bigger, just do your research online. That's all you got to do, and you'll find something that piques your interest.
So you would say your biggest takeaway is that if you really want something, you can kind of go get it. Because I feel like you've kind of been working it sounds like your entire life at certain goals. So I feel like
Yep.
if you really actually want to go do something, just go do it.
Yeah. That's it. But that boils down to nihilism. If you really want something, don't let anybody stop you. If the world's going to end tomorrow, go try and become a professional soccer player today, or go
Yeah,
try and become a billionaire today. If the world's
that's
going to
great,
end
man.
tomorrow, do your math homework.
Dude, it's been great having you on the show. And do you have any other questions? Do you have a question or questions for the next person on?
I would say, hmm, um, how about, what makes you different than a normal person as a business owner, or
So
what
kind of
makes you different as a person compared to somebody else?
compared to other entrepreneurs or compared to the average person or both?
Um, Both. Yeah, I'd say both.
Okay, dude, that's great. Well, yeah, thanks again, man.
Yep,
See
no
you.
problem.
Cool.